When Washington trims the federal budget, headlines talk billions saved. But in classrooms, those cuts don't look like numbers. They look like missing textbooks, fewer teachers, larger class sizes, and futures quietly slipping away. The Department of Education now sits at the center of this fight. With the national deficit past $35 trillion, lawmakers insist every department must sacrifice. But education isn't just another line item. It's the difference between a child having a counselor, an after-school program, or the chance to attend college without lifelong debt. Supporters of cuts argue Washington overspends and states should take more control. Critics warn reductions will hit vulnerable students hardest: low-income, minority, and disabled children. Over the next few minutes, we'll unpack the numbers, show how decisions in Washington ripple through classrooms, and explore the political battles shaping America's educational future. Because here, the stakes aren't just dollars, they are futures. The Department of Education operates on just under $79 billion. Spread across 50 states, nearly 100,000 public schools, and 49 million students, it funds everything from student aid to teacher training. Proposed cuts aim at Title I programs for low-income schools, after-school initiatives, and even Pell Grants for college students. Inflation has already eroded buying power. Today's dollars cover less than in 2010. Supporters call federal funding supplemental, arguing states must step up. But critics warn many communities already face overcrowded classrooms, teacher shortages, and outdated textbooks. For schools, savings mean fewer counselors, reduced special education services, and shrinking access to higher education. The numbers may begin in Washington, but the consequences are felt in classrooms nationwide. Where does $79 billion go? Nearly a third, $27 billion, funds Pell Grants, helping 6 million students afford college. Title I, at $18 billion, supports low-income schools with smaller classes, reading specialists, and tutoring. Special education gets $16 billion, ensuring services for 7 million students with disabilities. Smaller but vital funds train teachers, support English learners, and provide mental health resources. Crucially, nearly 90% of federal education dollars flow directly to students and classrooms, not bureaucracy. Cuts therefore hit tutors, aides, and aid checks, not red tape. That's why every shift in Washington ripples nationwide. A budget freeze sounds technical, but for schools it feels like doors slamming shut. In Virginia, delayed Title I grants forced districts to suspend tutoring mid-semester. Principals stretch dollars by cutting arts and extracurriculars. In Iowa and Nebraska, freezes stalled special education funding, leaving children waiting for speech therapy or aids. Parents scrambled, and teachers stretched even thinner. Once funds stall, ripple effects spread. Vendors delay contracts, universities scale back outreach, community partners close doors. A federal freeze isn't just policy, it's disruption in daily school life. In August 2025, the Supreme Court blocked parts of the Department of Education's funding plan, ruling it exceeded authority. The issue? Federal grants tied to diversity, equity, and inclusion benchmarks. Critics said Washington was pushing social policy through dollars. Supporters said these protections ensured equal access. The ruling didn't end funding but injected uncertainty. Schools depending on DEI-linked grants suddenly weren't sure whether to continue programs. Parents wondered if scholarships or tutoring would vanish mid-year. The case reminded the country that when courts intervene, classrooms feel the shockwaves. Cuts and freezes mean teachers doing more with less. Layoffs push class sizes to 35 or 40. Counselors and librarians go unfilled. Schools stretch textbooks for a decade. Teachers buy basics out of pocket: paper, markers, even soap. For students, the impact is immediate. A child who struggles with reading waits weeks for help. A teen battling anxiety never meets a counselor. One Ohio teacher said, "We're not just teaching, we're plugging holes in a sinking ship." Cuts don't harm buildings or chalkboards, they harm people. Not all students feel cuts equally. For low-income, minority, and disabled students, federal aid is a lifeline. Title I dollars fund tutors, after-school programs, and breakfast for kids who might otherwise go hungry. Special education money ensures legally required support for children with learning disabilities. Without it, districts/services, leaving families to fight for scraps. Civil rights leaders warn this deepens inequality. "You're not trimming fat, you're cutting into bone," one Detroit advocate said. For decades, federal aid promised fairness regardless of race, income, or zip code. Shrinking budgets put that promise at risk. The White House frames cuts as reprioritization, protecting core programs while trimming outdated ones. Biden argues it's necessary to control the deficit while still investing where it matters. Fiscal conservatives applaud the move. Progressives and teachers' unions accuse the administration of breaking promises to vulnerable communities. Parents feel the losses directly: crowded classrooms, canceled after-school programs. For young voters, cuts to aid and job training risk fueling disillusionment. Biden's balancing act risks alienating allies on both sides. Every dollar cut carries political consequences. Republicans call the cuts a victory against wasteful spending. Their message: let states decide. Beyond dollars, the fight ties into culture wars, DEI programs, book bans, and parental rights. By cutting federal dollars, GOP leaders argue local communities regain control over values taught in schools. Critics note rural red states rely heavily on federal aid. But GOP messaging, leaner budgets, less Washington, resonates with their base. For Republicans, cuts are more than savings. They're a chance to reshape who controls classrooms. Winners: deficit hawks and states less dependent on federal aid. For them, cuts signal discipline and more autonomy. Losers: low-income schools losing staff, families losing Pell Grant access, students with disabilities losing services. Rural schools, ironically in many Republican states, may feel the pain hardest as they depend most on federal dollars. Districts face impossible trade-offs: larger classes, fewer teachers, canceled programs. The math may balance in Washington, but schools are left in the red. Education isn't an expense, it's an investment. Every dollar multiplies tomorrow in graduates, workers, and citizens. Cuts widen achievement gaps, lower college rates, and weaken the workforce. Students in poor, rural, and underserved communities feel it first. And once opportunities are lost, they rarely return. This debate isn't about numbers. It's about whether America chooses to invest in its future or shortchange it. Washington may see billions saved, but the cost is a tutor lost, a teacher gone, a program erased. Behind every line item is a face. Every saving means fewer chances, fewer open doors. For education, less is not just less, it's futures denied. That's the real price of cuts, paid not in dollars, but in opportunities gone. For more fact-first analysis, subscribe to Politics Unpacked. Because politics isn't just headlines, it's choices that shape your classroom, your community, your future.